She may not leave the house without her husband's approval and permission. This is number one. It has to be with his permission and approval. Does that mean that she becomes a, what do you call? She becomes, she's under house arrest, so to speak, that she has to remain at home all the time? No, we'll talk about that further. Number two, she must be intimately available for the husband when he wants, when he needs, except when she's sick or she's ill and she cannot attend to his needs, then that is an exception. Otherwise, she must make herself available to his intimate needs. A third responsibility that she has is, which this goes back to the second, is that she may not fast a recommended fast without his approval and permission. So any wajib fast, she does not need his permission. In the holy month of Ramadan, or the qada of the month of Ramadan. She has 5 days, 6 days, 7 days to make up for it. She does not need his approval or permission. But if she would like to fast throughout the year, for example, in the month of Rajab or Sha'ban, she would need his approval. This is according to most ulama. But what is the proof? What proof do we have for these three duties? Number one, in leaving the house, she has to have his approval and permission. Number two, she must be intimately available to him. And number three, she may not fast without his permission. We have a hadith in Al-Kafi, and this hadith has an authentic chain of narrators. Sahihat Muhammad ibn Muslim. عن أبي جعفر عليه السلام. So it's on the authority of Imam al-Baqir. قال جاءت امرأة إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وآله فقالت, a woman came to Rasulullah and she asked, يا رسول الله ما حق الزوج على المرأة? What is the right of a husband upon his wife? فقال لها أن تطيعه ولا تعصيه. To obey him and not disobey him. ولا تصدق من بيته إلا بإذنه. And that she does not give a gift away in charity or not in charity, to give anything away from his house, from his belongings, except with his permission. So he has to give permission. So if there's a couch, there's an old chair in the house, for example, and you want to give it away to the Salvation Army or to anyone else, it has to be through his permission. وَلَا تَصُومُ تَطَوُّعًا إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ. And she does not fast a recommended fast except with his permission. Why did we say that this goes back to the second duty? The first duty of a wife is to be available intimately for her husband. The second is to seek his permission and approval when fasting a recommended fast. Obviously, because fasting negates his intimate rights, and hence she needs his approval for a recommended fast. So it's actually one duty, and it's not two separate duties. Needing his permission to fast goes back to his intimate rights or intimate needs. وَلَا تَمْنَعْهُ نَفْسَهَا وَإِنْ كَانَتْ عَلَى ظَهْرِ قَتَبٍ. That she makes herself available. She doesn't say no at all times. One comment here is that, let me finish the hadith and I'll comment. وَلَا تَخْرُجْ مِنْ بَيْتِهَا إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ. And that she does not leave his house or her house, because his house is her house. So the Imam doesn't say, the Rasulullah doesn't say his house, because his house is actually her house. وَلَا تَخْرُجْ مِنْ بَيْتِهَا إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ. That's it. On the point of intimacy, my dear sisters, this might not be fiqhi, but more of a psychological way of understanding men. Intimacy is extremely important in a marriage, for both a man and a woman, not just a man. A man has needs, a woman also has needs. A marriage without intimacy won't work. it will simply not work. That is a fundamental part. It's a biological part. It's something put into every man and woman from Allah Azza wa Jal. It's something very biological. It's something very natural. Men and women are a bit different. Although they both need intimacy, but a woman has the ability to wait, to be patient to some degree, while men don't have that ability. They simply don't have that ability to be patient. So they need that intimacy. It's just like needing food, drinks, to eat, to drink. Intimacy is something very important for them. They need it to function. Without it, they can't function. So, something happens to their hard drive. They won't be able to function. It affects their mood. It affects their, they start developing a temper. They get angry. And of course, the same thing can happen for ladies as well, for women as well. If their needs, intimate needs, are not met, this can also affect their mood. So intimacy is very important. And hence, the emphasis on meeting a man's intimate needs, meeting his needs. The issue is, if his needs are not met at home, he's going to start looking outside of the house. If his needs are not met inside the house, he'll start looking outside. Is that a justification? No. But is that reality? Yes. It's not a justification. We're not justifying for men that as long as, you might give an analogy, that if a husband comes back from work and he doesn't find lunch at home, he's going to steal his neighbor's lunch. Obviously, that's not a correct analogy. But is that reality? It's reality. If his needs are not met at home for a while and without an excuse, with the excuse that I'm tired, today I came late, today I have a headache, and this keeps on going for a while, this will disrupt the peace of the family. It'll disrupt the peace in that marriage. And when the marriage is disrupted, the whole house is disrupted, including the children. Everyone in the house will pay a price. And hence the emphasis on meeting a man's intimate needs. What about her needs? We'll talk about this in a couple of moments. وَلَا تَخْرُجْ مِنْ بَيْتِهَا إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ. So she needs his permission to leave the house. Some ulama say this is general. Anytime she wants to leave the house, she needs his permission, even if he's not at home. Other ulama, like Sayyid al-Khoi, he says this duty actually goes back to the intimacy duty, the duty on intimacy. So there's actually one duty that a wife has, and that is to attend to her husband's intimate needs. That's it. And the fact that she needs to ask permission to leave the house, it goes back to his intimacy. So if he's not at home, this does not violate intimacy. If he's at work or if he's traveling, does she necessarily need his permission to leave the house? No. This is according to Sayyid al-Khoi. According to Sayyid Sistani, no. These are two different duties. The need to ask for permission to leave the house and to attend to her husband's duties. These are very separate. There are two independent duties. But does he have the right to stop her from leaving the house? Here, if she has justifiable reasons to leave the house, she's visiting family members, she's going to a doctor, she's going shopping for essential needs, perhaps going for ziyarah, some ulama mention, he has no right to stop her. But if it's nothing essential, it's not about visiting family members, or for ziyarah, or going to a masjid for Salat al-Jum'ah, for example, it's not essential, then she would need to ask him for permission. But if it's essential, he cannot say no. She has to ask for permission, but he has to grant her the permission to leave the house. If it's something essential, like going to a doctor, or going to, for anything essential, anything necessary. Does a wife have to obey her husband in any other matter other than intimacy, leaving the house without permission, seeking permission for fasting, a recommended fast? Outside of this scope, does she need his permission for anything else? Can he order her to do things that she doesn't like? Does she have to obey him? Ulama say no. His authority is in the scope of what we just mentioned. Other than that, he has no authority to order and forbid. What to wear, what to eat, where to go, come to my parents' house, do this, eat that. He has no authority over what she does, what she wears, what she eats, what she takes, if she exercises, doesn't exercise. For example, birth control pills. Can she take birth control pills without his permission? Yes. He cannot force her to take. He cannot stop her from taking birth control pills. He cannot force her into taking birth control pills. What she does, what she takes or does not take, that's up to her. He cannot order her. Cooking, cleaning, washing, taking care of the kids. He has no authority of ordering her what to do in that matter. Fiqhi-wise, can she sit at home from morning till night not doing anything? Yes. Except intimacy. She has to attend to his intimate needs. But from a fiqhi perspective, she could literally sit at home and not do anything. Yes. There's one thing, and that is if there is an unspoken condition and stipulation in the marriage contract that the husband expects his wife to cook and clean and take care of house chores, and she accepted that unspoken condition and stipulation, it becomes binding upon her. And she has to stick to that condition. And this varies from place to place. For example, here in the United States, I don't think there's such an unspoken condition, stipulation, that a husband expects his wife to stay at home, cook and clean. Here, the urf of this society, it's not expected of the woman to do so because probably she works as well. The same way he goes to work, she probably goes to work. So it's not an unspoken condition, stipulation that she has to stay at home and cook. But for example, in Iraq, I'm giving an example, or in some other places, although today in Iraq a lot of women are working as well during the day. But let's say some parts of Iraq, some parts of the Middle East, where it's common for the woman to stay at home. When a man marries, there's an unspoken condition in the marriage contract that I expect of my wife to cook and clean. And she signed up for that. She accepted that marriage. When she said qabiltu, or when she said zawwajtuka nafsi, it was upon that condition. And this condition is called shartun irtikaziyyun uqala'i. That this is a logical, reasonable sort of condition that is irtikazi. It isn't spoken, but it's unspoken, but it goes by default. It goes without saying, as they say. It goes without saying. And proof of this is that, for example, in Iraq, if a lady would say, but listen, I accept your proposal, but I'm not going to cook. I'm not going to clean. You can't expect me to do anything. I'm like, okay, then find someone else. Then we're not going to go through this marriage. Again, this sort of condition varies from place to place. So this is not a general fatwa for all times and all places. It varies from country to country. Maybe this shart irtikazi uqala'i exists in Iraq, but it doesn't exist in the US. Or vice versa. Or there might be other conditions and stipulations that are unspoken, that are here in the US, but don't exist in Iraq. You see? A faqih, a jurist has to take these into consideration. That when a husband and wife, they signed up for a marriage, there were things that were not spoken, but they went without saying. So what were they? What were they? What's common? What's urf in that country? What's urf in that society? What is urf? That's actually a stipulation. It's a condition in that marriage contract. Let's come to the husband. We have some narrations that say a wife, if she makes a nadr, she would need her husband's permission. When swearing, saying, Wallahi, I will do this or that, she needs her husband's permission. Most ulama today, they say it's either mustahab or this is something, it's based on adab and akhlaq. It's etiquette. It's not wajib. Let's come to the husband. What are his duties and responsibilities towards his wife? Number one, let's start with intimacy, because this is crucial. This is something very important. Is a husband responsible for attending to his wife's intimate needs or not? He is. Definitely he is. But the issue is, the question is, how vast is that obligation? How necessary is it? Or when does he need to attend to his wife's intimate needs? For a wife, she has to be available all the time. All the time. She has to make herself available whenever duty calls, so to speak, or whenever the husband has intimate needs. Does the same apply to a husband if his wife is in need, or can he say no? Here, most ulama say a wife has a need, but he does not necessarily have to attend to her needs all the time. It's within 4 months. Once every 4 months. Once every 4 months, he has to attend to her needs. If he drags it longer than 4 months, he's committing a sin. And that's haram. Now, this fatwa might seem unreasonable because the husband, whenever he has needs, she has to attend to his needs, but the other way around, it's once every 4 months. So where do they get this from? There's a hadith. This hadith is in Man La Yahduru al-Faqih. The sanad is authentic. Sahih at Safwan ibn Yahya. He says, he asked Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, عن الرجل تكون عنده المرأة الشابة. A husband is married to a young wife. فيمسك عنها الأشهر والسنة. He doesn't attend to her needs. He's not intimate with her for months or a year. لا يقربها. He doesn't get close to her. ليس يريد الإضرار بها. He doesn't want to harm her. It's not that they're in a fight or he wants to literally harm her or avoid her. يكون لهم مصيبة. Rather, there's a tragedy. He has a tragedy, she has a tragedy, there's some sort of tragedy, there's some sort of problem. Maybe his mother died, his father died. يكون في ذلك آثما. Is he committing a sin that he's not intimate with his wife for several months or a year? The Imam says, إذا تركها 4 أشهر كان آثما بعد ذلك. If he leaves her for 4 months, after that, he will be committing a sin. And in some copies of Man La Yahduru al-Faqih, because this is put in parentheses, so that means that this part, which I'm going to read, is in some copies of Man La Yahduru al-Faqih, and in some manuscripts it's not. إلا أن يكون بإذنها. Unless it's with her permission, then he's not committing a sin. So she releases him of that duty, that's fine. This is one opinion. Another opinion by some contemporary scholars, they say that this hadith is taken out of context. This hadith is not general. This hadith is speaking about a couple who are suffering from a tragedy. The husband, maybe his mother died, his son died, he's out of business, he lost his job. Mentally, he's not there. Psychologically, he's not there. He cannot attend to his wife's needs. There's something going on. There's something stopping him. Until how long can he be like that? Until how long can he not attend to his wife's needs? You see, ليس يريد الإضرار بها. He does not want to harm her. يكون لهم مصيبة. They have some sort of tragedy in the family. It's not that, it's an ordinary day for them. No, there's some tragedy. And when there is a form of tragedy, psychologically a man can't be intimate. If his mind is busy with something, especially if it's a tragedy that's making him feel sad or depressed, he simply cannot. He cannot. Biologically, he just can't. The Imam says he has up to 4 months. 4 months, hopefully he's gotten over the tragedy. He can move on. He could attend to his wife's needs. He's moved on. He's past that tragedy. While some ulama, they did not look at the context. They didn't see the context, And they simply said, the Imam's answer is very general. He said, إِذَا تَرَكَهَا أَرْبَعَةَ أَشْهُرٍ كَانَ آثِمًا بَعْدَ ذَلك. That if he leaves her for 4 months, after that he's committing a sin. Before that, not. Okay, I understand, but there's a context to the hadith. There's a context to the question. And hence, some scholars, they did not take this hadith. Rather, their fatwa is that intimate needs are reciprocal in Sharia Islam. The same way that a woman needs to attend to her husband's needs at all times, or whenever duty calls, whenever he's in need, the same applies to him. He has to attend to his wife's needs whenever she's in need. It works together. I mean, they have the same sort of duties. Where do they base this fatwa off of? The holy verse. وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. That woman, they have the same amount of rights, the rights or the duties that they have, equivalent to the duties they have, rights. وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ. Whatever their duties are, they have equivalent rights. They're very reciprocal. So there's a balance between their rights and their duties. It's not that women have more duties but less rights. The Quran is very, very clear. وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ, equal, equivalent. مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنْ. لَهُنَّ, what is for them is equivalent to what is against them. عَلَيْهِنَّ. Meaning the rights and their duties. They're very equivalent. So the same way that a wife has a duty to fulfill her husband's needs, intimate needs, he has that duty as well. That's her right as well. That's her right as well, to attend to her needs. So this is, unfortunately, this is not a popular fatwa. This is the fatwa of some contemporary scholars, but it's not the orthodox mainstream fatwa. Number 2, he has to spend on his wife. He has to spend on her. He has to take care of her financially and economically, based upon her needs. What a woman of her social standing, what are her needs? He has to provide that for her. And again, this goes back to urf. It varies from one urf to another urf. So for example, if they live in a country where a woman, she does the cleaning, she does the cooking, he spends according to what she needs. If they live in another country where it is the norm, urf, where it is the norm that a woman has a maid at home. There are some countries where there are maids. For example, in some Gulf countries, it's very normal. It's the norm to have a maid at home. Maybe to have a driver. It's not common for the woman to drive in some Islamic countries. Rather, she has a driver that takes her from place to place. If that is the norm, he is required to provide her that. A maid, a driver. And what is the norm? How many dresses? What does she spend on perfume, on makeup, on jewelry? Things that she needs at home, he is required to spend according to what is the urf, according to what is the norm. Anything less, he's negligent. He's held accountable. Anything more, that's good of him. But he's required to spend on her according to what is the norm, based on their social standing in their society, in the city that they live, in the country that they live. It's the norm to have a maid, he has to provide her a maid. It's the norm to have a driver, he has to provide her a driver. If it's not the norm to have a maid, can she force him to get a maid? No, because that's not the norm. Can she force him to get a driver in a society where it's not the norm to have a driver? No, she cannot. She cannot. And the basis for this fatwa is وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and live with them according to what is customary, what is the norm. وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ. So this verse is speaking to men, it's speaking to the husband. Live with them according to what is the norm. عَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Again, ma'ruf, you see, ma'ruf is very fluid. And that's why Islamic law can be sometimes fluid, especially when it comes to social laws. If in a country where women usually don't study at a university, can she force him to allow him to to study at a university? No, she can't. But if she lives in a society, in a country where it's the norm to study, where it's the norm to work, that is the urf. He has no right to forbid her. Again, we go back to that condition of, or the duty of seeking permission to leave the house. If it's the norm to work, if it's the norm to study, to go to university, he cannot stop her. Because that is urf. And the Quran says, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Live with them according to what is the norm and customary. A very important point, and that is, if a woman has her own money, she works, or she has an inheritance from a deceased family member, does she have to spend on herself? No. Can her husband take her money? No, absolutely not, unless she's giving it to him. For example, she has a relative that died in Lebanon and Iraq. She received a handsome amount of inheritance. Can she give it to him? If she wants to, she can. Can he force her? Absolutely not. Can he tell her that you have your own money, spend on yourself? Absolutely not. Even if she has money. Even if she's richer than him, she has more money than him, he is still required to spend on her as if she has no money whatsoever. Whether she has money or she doesn't, whether she's richer than him or she's not, it does not make a difference when it comes to the husband spending on his wife. That's a duty. Another duty is that he has to provide her proper housing based on their social standing. Based on a social standing. So if it's their social standing to live in a house, he cannot put her in an apartment. If it's their social standing to live in an apartment, she cannot order him or force him to get them a house. It's based on their social standing. أَسْكُنُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ سَكَنْتُمْ مِنْ وُجْدِكُمْ وَلَا تُضَارُّوهُنَّ لِتُضَيِّقُوا عَلَيْهِنْ. And do not harm them to make things difficult for them. وَإِن كُنَّ أُولَاتِ حَمْلٍ فَأَنْفِقُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ حَتَّى يَضَعْنَ حَمْلَهُنْ. In fact, a husband is required to spend on his wife even after he divorces her until the iddah is over, the 3 months or the 3 menstrual cycles. And if she's pregnant, he has to spend on her until she delivers. It could be a day, it could be 9 months. As long as she's pregnant, she's still attached to him. She's in her iddah and he has to spend on her. Okay, let's come to the juicier part. Can a husband marry a second wife without his first wife's approval and oppression? So we have a fatwa on my right side saying no. Let's take it step by step. The husband and wife got in a marriage. There were no stipulations, there were no conditions. طيب, you did not stipulate. You did not set a condition. You got into a marriage. Now he wants to marry a second wife. Permanent or temporary? I'll repeat the question. Can he or can he not? From a fiqh perspective, he can. He can. That's his right. نعم. فإن خفتم ألا نعم. فانكحوا ما طاب لكم من النساء مثنى وثلاث ورباع. He has the right to marry up to 4. Sayyid Sistani does not allow permanent marriage with a Christian or a Jew. A Christian woman or a Jewish woman. For Muslim men, for Shi'i men, they may not marry a permanent wife that is Christian or Jewish. Does he have a wife or he doesn't have a wife? A first wife or a second wife? Sayyid al-Khoi requires the wife's permission, the first wife's permission, if the husband wants to have a temporary marriage with a I'm sorry. Sayyid al-Khoi requires the wife's permission to marry a permanent marriage with a Christian or a Jewish wife. With a Muslim wife, he does not need her he does not need the first wife's permission. If he wishes to marry a second wife and she happens to be a Christian or Jew, he needs the first wife's permission. What if it's a temporary marriage with a Jewish or a Christian woman? Does he need his first wife's permission? Sayyid al-Khoi, I believe, says no. I believe says no. Sayyid al-Sistani says that if a man who is married to a Muslim woman, he wants to marry a Christian or a Jew, if it's a permanent marriage, he may not do so. He may not do so. If it's a temporary marriage, then he cannot do so without her permission. This is a fatwa. Without her permission, he may not. This is a fatwa. He may not marry as a temporary wife a Christian or a Jew. But if she does give permission, again, as a ihtiyat wujubi, he should not do so. Do you see? I know it could be a bit tricky. So if she gives permission, if she does not give permission, he definitely cannot marry as a temporary wife a Christian or a Jew. If she does give permission, as a ihtiyat wujubi, he should not. Even if she does give permission, as a ihtiyat wujubi, she does not. I want to go back to Sayyid al-Khoi. I made a mistake. Sayyid al-Khoi says that if a Muslim man who is married to a Muslim woman and he wants to perform temporary marriage with a Christian or a Jew, he may do so with her permission. If she permits, he may do so. If she does not permit, he may not do so. And he bases it off of this hadith. It's in من لا يحضر الفقيه صحيحة هشام بن سالم عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام في رجل تزوج ذمية على مسلمة. A man who has a Muslim wife, he goes and marries a dhimmi. A dhimmi is either a Christian or a Jew. The Imam says يفرق بينهما ويضرب ثمن الحد. Not only can he not remain with her, but he's punished, he's flogged. How much? 12 صوتا. He's flogged 12 times. ونصفا, 12.5 times. فإن رضيت المسلمة ضرب ثمن الحد. And if his wife later on says, no, I'm fine with it, he's still flogged. ضرب ثمن الحد ولم يفرق بينهما. But his marriage is correct. Sayyid al-Khoi says, if she accepts, then that temporary marriage is okay. If she doesn't, it's not okay. Sayyid Sistani says, even if the wife gives him permission to do a temporary marriage with a Muslim and a Christian, he should not. As a necessary precaution, as a ihtiyat wujubi, he may not. What are some of the stipulations and conditions that a wife may make in a marriage contract? This is very important. Why? Because a minute ago I said if a woman did not have stipulations or conditions, can a wife, before marriage, not after marriage. After marriage it's a done deal. You can't go back. Before marriage, at the time when you're engaged, before saying the aqd, زوجتك نفسي قبلت, before that, can you make certain stipulations and conditions? Yes. Is he obligated to respect those conditions and stipulations? Yes. What are some of these conditions and stipulations? Number one, you can ask for wikala, for divorce. What is this? You see, in Islam, divorce is in the hands of whom? The husband. The husband. What if he does not want to divorce, but the wife wants to divorce? What's the solution? It's very difficult. If she does not have a justifiable reason, for example, he spends on her, he doesn't oppress her, he treats her well, but she dislikes him, she cannot get a divorce. She cannot get a religious divorce. She needs strong grounds for divorce. He's abusive, he hurts her, he harms her, he doesn't spend on her. She has to create a file for him, and I'm sure most wives do have a file on their husbands. Then she can request for a religious divorce. Before that, there's no grounds for divorce. And here, Al-Hakim al-Shar'i, will either grant her a divorce or not, depending on can she reach a hakim shar'i or not. There's another way, there's an easier way. But if you're already married, it's a done deal. This only happens if you're not married. And that is that you stipulate at the time of marriage that he gives you wikala to divorce yourself on his behalf. You tell him, give me a wikala that, for example, if you marry another woman, or you decide I'm moving somewhere else, or you go to jail, or I divorce myself. Or it could be a general wikala. You give me a general wikala that I have the right to divorce myself on your behalf. If he accepts and gives you the wikala, then he cannot go back on his word. Why? Because a marriage contract is binding. And this wikala was a stipulation in a binding contract. And hence he cannot later on take away the wikala. He cannot strip you of that wikala. You are his wakil in divorcing yourself. In Tahdhib al-Ahkam, there's a narration, موثقة إسحاق ibn Ammar, this is an authentic narration, عن جعفر عن أبيه عليه السلام, أن علي بن أبي طالب كان يقول, Amir al-Mu'mineen would say, من شرط لامرأته شرطا فليفي لها به. That if a husband accepts a condition and a stipulation, his wife made a condition and he accepted, he has to hold true to his promise. فإن المسلمين عند شروطهم. Muslims have to uphold their contracts and any conditions that they set in a contract. إلا شرطا حرم حلالا أو أحل حراما, except a condition that makes halal haram or haram halal. So this is one condition that you should make. Or not you should, you can. I'll talk about whether you should or you shouldn't. Number two, you could set a condition. It is your right, fiqhi right, that he doesn't marry a second wife. You could set that as a condition, that I accept your marriage proposal based upon this condition, that you do not marry a second wife. Three, you could set a condition that no temporary wives. This is a condition in the marriage contract that as long as you're married to me, there's no temporary marriages. And if he accepts, when you say zawwajtuka nafsi and he says qabiltu, that is binding upon him. That is binding upon him. If you made such a condition that you do not marry a second wife or you do not have any temporary marriages, what does this entail? What does this entail? First of all, is this condition binding? Is it acceptable or is it not acceptable? There's different views. First view is by Shaykh al-Wahid al-Khurasani and all previous scholars, most previous scholars, that this condition is void. It's invalid. You cannot set a condition that your husband does not marry a second wife. Why? They say, حرم حلالا. The Imam says, إلا شرطا حرم حلالا. You are making what is halal, what? Haram upon him. And so this condition is invalid. And among those who accept this theory is Ayatollah Shaykh al-Wahid al-Khurasani, hafidhahullah. Other scholars, they say no, this condition is valid. The majority of scholars today, like Sayyid Sistani, Sayyid al-Khoi, others, they say no, this condition is valid because you're not making it haram upon him. You're not telling him it's haram upon you to marry. You're simply telling him it's my condition. If you'd like to marry me, you cannot marry another wife, or you cannot have temporary marriages. You're not making it haram. And hence, this is a valid condition, and you can set it. But what does it entail? Let's say a husband does go ahead and marry another wife. What does that mean? These ulama, like Sayyid Sistani, Sayyid al-Khoi, they say that he simply committed something haram. Is that marriage acceptable? Is it valid? Yes, it's valid. So the second marriage is valid, except he's doing something haram. But the marriage is valid. He has a temporary marriage. Is it valid? Yes, it's valid. But huwa athim. He just committed a sin. That's it. This is the second theory. And among those who accept this theory, Sayyid Sistani and Sayyid al-Khoi. A third theory, and this theory is held by the late Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Hakim, rahmatullahi alayh, who passed away several years ago. I think in 2021, he passed away in the holy city of Najaf. He says that if a wife stipulates, puts a condition in the marriage contract that he may not marry a second wife, the second marriage is invalid. It's not that he committed something haram. No, no, no. The marriage is invalid. Not the first. Not the first with his wife. The second marriage or the temporary marriage is invalid. And he has his own justification, his own proof and evidence that I don't want to get into. It's a bit complicated. But he's the only one that stands out from the rest of the maraja, contemporary maraja today. He says that the second marriage is invalid, while other ulama say no, it's not invalid, but he's just committing a sin. If he goes out and marries a second wife, he's committing a sin. A fourth opinion, and I've seen some mujtahids, no big names that have picked up the fourth theory, but it's out there, that if he marries a second wife, the first wife has the authority to revoke her marriage. Revoke her marriage. It's just like you go out and buy, for example, a car in an Islamic market, not here, obvious. Or maybe even here, maybe you could take them to court. You go out and you buy a car, and it's supposed to be 2025 model, and it turns out to be 2020. You can revoke the sale. You could return the car and ask for your money back. Similarly, some mujtahids say that she can revoke her marriage. But again, no big names have accepted this theory. There's a couple of scholars here and there in the House of Qom or Najaf that accepted this, but none of the top maraja. Now there's one more topic that I'd like to mention, and I'm running out of time because Maghrib is very close, and that is prenup. Prenup. When a husband and wife have a divorce, and this is very common, whether it's in the East or in the West. If you don't sign a prenup, correct me if I'm wrong, the one with the less wealth gets to take the wealthier spouse's half of their wealth, correct? You take half of their wealth. So if the husband is wealthier and he did not sign a prenup with his wife at the time of divorce or after divorce, she can take half of his wealth, even if it was earned by him. It's not that they both worked and they have a shared savings account or a checkings account and then they split it. No, no, no. It's his work, it's his money. She takes half of it after divorce. Is this halal or haram? What do you say? Haram? So this is one opinion. This is the popular opinion. This is the popular opinion among ulama, that if she takes half of his wealth, she's taking money that does not belong to her. He earned the money. Sometimes they work together. They had a shared savings account, checkings account. They earn together. Everything is split in half. Even the expenses are in half. The house is in half. The cars, everything. That makes sense. But he's making the living. He goes to work. It's his money. And you take half of his wealth, you're taking money that does not belong to you. This is the popular opinion, and most of our ulama say this. There's another view, and that says, let's go back to شرط الارتكاز العقلاء. Remember? Sometimes there are unspoken conditions in a marriage that it goes without saying. It goes without saying. So for example, in some societies, in some communities, they expect the wife to be a virgin. It's not said, obviously. It's improper. It's impolite. You don't go to a family and say, I married your daughter if she's a virgin. It's horrendous to say something like that. But it goes unspoken. If the husband later on discovers that she's not a virgin, he has the right to what? To revoke the marriage, to invalidate the marriage. This is called fasakh. But in a society where, no, it's not uncommon. She could be a virgin, she could be not a virgin. Does he have the right of fasakh? Is there that unspoken condition? No, not necessarily. Again, this goes back to urf. Where does this couple live? Are they in the US, or are they in Europe, or are they in southern Iraq, for example, or in tribal areas like in Afghanistan or in countries like that? So it varies from urf to urf. Here, if a husband goes into a marriage and he knows that by not signing up a prenup and they get a divorce, his wife can take half of his wealth. And he had the ability to sign a prenup at the time of marriage. They were able to sign a prenup, but he purposely did not. He purposely did not. That means what? Again, this is an unpopular opinion. This is an unpopular opinion. I would say go with the first opinion, the most popular opinion among the ulama. But because this is an academic session, I'm telling you that there could be another opinion, that the husband could have signed a prenup, but he didn't. So he knew what he was signing up for. He knew what he was signing up for. He could have said, he could have put a clause in the marriage that I will not give you half of my wealth if we have a divorce. But since he did not set that sort of condition, that means he accepts to forfeit half of his wealth at the time of divorce. Again, this theory needs a lot of working. I mean, you need to work on it, and needs a lot of cleansing and renovations, so to speak, to see if it works or not. But most of our ulama, they issue the first fatwa. They say that if a wife, they hadn't signed a prenup, and they go into a divorce, and she takes half of his wealth, this is haram. I'm going to stop right here because Maghrib is in about a minute or two, and we're going to hear the adhan, and I have to lead salah today. So I will stop here. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take. If I didn't get to your questions, I can take them after salah, inshallah. Wa sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Are there any questions? Okay. If it's understood from the beginning, she does not need his permission. If they made it clear in the beginning that you can leave whenever you'd like, you don't have to ask me, that's it. He forgoes. So it's a right, and you could forgo that right. Any person, it's a haqq, and he could forgo that right. So if it's made in the beginning, an understanding that you can leave the house, whether I'm at home or not at home, then she's not held accountable, and she's not doing anything wrong.